Welcome to lesson number 7. We are going to be starting out with these 3 colors: blue, magenta, and white. And this is going to be our solid panel for today. So let's go ahead and get some of these colors down. A bit of magenta, a little bit of blue. These paints are a little bit thicker, so they're not so drippy. With thicker paint, sometimes you need a little bit more for spreading, but it does spread a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and put in maybe just a little bit of white here and there, just to see what happens. All right, now, instead of using our catalyst on this lesson, let's go ahead and just use a spatula. This is a regular cooking spatula. If you go to the kitchen store, you're going to find lots and lots of fun tools that you can paint with and do neat things with. And you can tell this one's well loved. But we did exactly the same thing. We use this as a little bit of a squeegee. And honestly, the catalyst does work a little bit easier, but this works just as well. You just have to kind of go over it, and I guess it doesn't quite spread as easily, but you know, sometimes you want that. So don't forget about your spatulas. They're neat little tools. Start a little bit more magenta. I really wanted this to be pinker, because we're going to be bringing in some greens here in a minute. And the magenta is just lovely with greens. I like that right there. Let's go ahead and do this. Ooh, that's neato. Let's do this. Okay, so let's carefully take this masking off. Ooh, I got some leakage there. That's okay. That's just a guide for us to use when we start bringing the darks over to the light side. We're going to do something right here, so thank you. Yeah, right, Elvis? All right, so let's set this aside really quick and let it dry. And I want to share with you some of these flowers or greens that I brought back from a walk in the forest the other day. And I intentionally brought these back with the intention of using them as little muses for painting. All right, so let's take a look at some of these greens that we brought back. Oh, look at that. That looks just like a heart. I didn't even notice that before. Look at that, it's a perfect little heart. And these guys, they caught my eye because they have 3 petals. And we just now learned that they're like 3 heart petals. Use that in my next little creation. And then we've got some ferns here. These are nice. Look at these bay leaves. They're just long stretched out footballs. And you see how they have their stem? It kind of goes up and then up. And then these guys start kind of branching off of that center stem. So we'll use these guys too for sure. Look at this guy. I'm not sure what tree this is from exactly. But I do like these little branches that are those little V's that we did earlier. You see how they just all kind of branch off of the one main branch. Pretty cool. And then here's one more guy for a shape that we can use today. And this is kind of scalloped on the edges. Isn't that pretty? That one's a little bit pointier, but they have scallopy little edges. I love that. So let's go ahead and bring some of these guys into our next piece. All right, and we're going to put down some greens. So this is called pale green. There's a little bit of yellow in it, you can tell. And this is sap green. And this has a little bit more blue in it. The two of these are going to be happy together. You can see right there, those two greens. Happy, happy. And what do you think is going to make them even happier? Yep, a little bit of light. Put that in there. All right, so here's the perfect little bit of happiness here. So we're going to start with some greens. Why don't we start with a fern? Leave it here as our muse right now. Let's make a green fern coming down from here. So I'm going to start maybe a little bit upside down. Like that. So he can be our little model. So we've got the stem, and then you've got these little coming up. And then the next one, there's space definitely in between. When they grow somewhat in the direction of going up here, very similar to a feather, not too different from a feather, right? Top and this blends. Okay, maybe the other side. You'll notice there's a little bit of a zigzag pattern. The space on this side is where this leaf over here, this segment of leaf starts. This is kind of slimy. If you were a little fairy and you wanted to take a little water slide down here, you could totally do that. So they're not necessarily like one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here. They're a little bit off. So I want to capture that. That's really pretty. It makes this plant somewhat unique. Right? Happy, happy. As I do this, I like to kind of bring in different, the two different greens, but it's not all the same color. Maybe a little bit of, I'd even dip a little bit of white in there too, so that we get a little bit of mixture going on here in terms of color, more than just one color. Let this dry, and we'll come back over and check out all these little dots. These are typically found on the bottom side of ferns, but there's no reason why we can't bring some dots in to represent that little underbelly of these guys. So fun. We have to be patient though and wait for them to dry. All right, so let's bring in some bay leaves in here. I kind of like the idea of having them come up from here. So let's bring that magenta in and make some of these bay leaves
from this dark
So we have
side all the way up into that light side. So this is going to create some nice balance for us. And with this stem and these leaves, we're going to be using the magenta and the blue, both of the colors that we've used on the left side here. I'm also choosing to put these magenta and blue leaves here because that's where that little blob of paint kind of leaked through onto the right side, onto the light side. So once we put these leaves down, you'll never know. And I'm bringing in a little bit of white here, just so that I'm going to be able to see those leaves on the darker side here. So let's fill those in so that when we put our colored paint down, it's going to pop. So I'm just blending these colors right here on the canvas, the magenta, the blue, and the white. And notice how we get that kind of purple, bringing these colors together, that kind of periwinkle color. Some beautiful tones going on here. By overlapping these bay leaves on top of that fern just a little bit here and there, again is adding depth to our piece. So have fun with this process. Have fun blending your colors right there on your canvas. See what pops out. When you see something really pretty, when your eye is happy, then you know you're done. All right, let's bring in this little guy. So he has 3 hearts coming from one middle and one simple stem. All right, so let's put some of these guys over here on the dark side. So we'll go ahead and put some white down to give these guys some of their glory. I'm going to bring in my paint pen here to do these little heart leaves here because it's just going to be a little bit easier. We'll get a little bit more control with this pen, and then what we can do is come over it with white paint. So here's the stem. So come out here, go here, come out here, come out here. It's as easy as that, and now we just fill it in. Let's go ahead and put another one coming in from down here. So here's the stem. So right here we're going to go I'm going to cross over that guy. That's nice. And we'll put another one maybe over here, coming in on top of this guy. I'm filling these leaves in with white so that we can paint on top of that easily with the other colors. I'm probably going to bring in some greens over here, but the greens aren't really going to pop if we just put them right down on top of the blue and magenta. They're going to look a little bit muddy. So by putting this white down, then our greens are going to pop easily. Let's bring in that other little guy over here. So we start with the stem, and I'm just going to use my paint now rather than the paint pen and kind of sketch in those 3 heart-shaped leaves. And then I will go ahead and fill those in. Easy peasy. Let's bring on our little friend here with the scalloped edges. I think he's going to look nice up here in this area. So let's go ahead, give him that white stem, because if we used any other color over here on the dark side, it's going to be really hard to see. We'll go ahead and sketch in those scallop, just like little arches, almost like a little cloud. And then as we have some white and green on our brush, we can go ahead and just fill in this beautiful little leaf. Now that these little white leaves over here are dry, I'm going to bring in some of that light green and just fill that in. And then once I get a nice green base on here, I'm going to put in just a couple of layers of green, probably bring in some white here as well. And again, just blending right here on the canvas until my eye likes what it sees. As we finish up the last little bit of blending here, we want to make sure we give the stems a little bit of love. Let's give this guy some more green as well. And again, all of these layers are just adding more and more depth and more interest to our piece. Let's get some more white on our brush and bring in some dots over here on the dark side, bringing in that white from the right side over to the left side. This is always one of my favorite parts because you really see how the blending starts happening between the 2 pages. Bringing that just a little bit of white over makes our eyes so happy. Bring in some magenta, and on the right side, on that white part here, grab a spot where you've got a good chunk of white showing, and we'll just bring some little magenta lines in to add some interest. And now I'm going to bring in some blue and bring in some more lines, but I'm going to make them go in a different direction. And as I make these little lines, I'm taking the opportunity to overlap a little bit here and there. Notice how those lines are going over the leaves just a little bit. And now let's go ahead and bring in a darker color into the center of those circles. Just another little bit of layering here. I'm taking this opportunity to freshen up some of my colors here and there. And I invite you to just take a look at your piece and see if anything needs freshening up. Yours might not, but just kind of giving a little bit of pop here, bringing in a little bit more dark over here to this light side. Let's bring this guy in next. Let's just go ahead and overlap him on top of all of what we've got going on right now. His branches are kind of spindly, and there's lots of gaps in between the branches, so that's going to give us the opportunity to show what we have on our piece already by kind of popping through, peeking through this branch that we're putting down here. And you can see we're using those little V shapes, doot, 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 very much like we've done in prior pieces. So you just have that little branch, add all the little V's, and voila. Let's take a closer look at this scallopy little guy. So notice his stem, it goes right through the middle of the leaf and has these little guys branching off. So I want to go ahead and just mimic that, and not perfectly by any means, but I just want to honor this leaf, honor this plant by putting that shape in there. And now on these darker pieces, on these bay leaves, I'm going to go ahead and just give it an added pop with a nice black outline, and I'm choosing to use my medium paint pen here, just because it gives me a nice sharp poppy line. And now to balance things out, I'm going to bring in my white paint pen and I'm going to outline some of these other greens with white. So again, a little bit of dark and a little bit of light, and a little bit of dark and a little bit of light. Notice here how bringing in that little tiny bit of black on top of our white adds so much depth and added dimension. It's so easy. We can take that same pen, this is just a marker, and go ahead and outline some of these other greens. And here we're at that stage where we kind of have to notice what's in front and what's behind, all of that overlapping happening. So we just want to make sure we get our lines right. Grab that white marker again. I'm using my medium paint pen and I'm putting in those dots that were calling out to us. Those dark pieces over there were just screaming for some little white dots, weren't they? And our final touch, I'm bringing in that black Sharpie marker and just giving a black circle around those white dots, paying attention to my overlapping. And I think we are all finished, my friend. What do you think?